Hi, this is Derek here, doing a review for HorrorNerds.com of the movie Scream 4, the latest and greatest in the Scream series. I would like to start off by saying it was released in April of 2011, much to both a mixed review of critical success as well as criticisms. It did reprise some of its original cast members, including Sidney Prescott being, done, of course, with Neve Campbell as the helm. Also, David Arquette and Courtney Cox reassuming their roles as well. And directed by Kevin Williamson, it was written by Kevin Williamson, directed by Wes Craven for a little bit of it, and then Aaron Kruger, I believe, who did Scream 3, came in, sort of took over those roles. The film works. It works on several levels. One, it's a throwback to the first film, which is never a bad thing. Enough years have passed since Scream 3 came out, which was probably the worst of the four. And I think people were ready for another movie. I think it was time to see another chapter in the Scream legacy, and I was admittedly skeptical. I mean, any movie going past even a sequel, to me, usually spells a problem. These days, it seems like it's nothing to have a franchise built around a trilogy, or even, more movies than that. But as we've learned with things like Star Wars and Star Wars, I'll just say that anything past the first three seemed to be a bad idea. Nevertheless, anything can be done right with the right people at the helm. I think having Kevin Williamson writing the script and doing such a fantastic job with it, creating that nice witty back and forth dialogue with his characters and adding a lot of ironic moments, as well as, paying homage to the original Scream, it worked. And it felt right. It felt that it was fun, to go see it opening night. And actually, I went to the midnight showing and enjoyed it immensely, even though it is a bit long. I also thought it was cool in the sense that right at the beginning, making fun of the Stab movie, the movie within the movie, that they included a lot of good geek marks, I call it. I mean, because I think Kevin Williamson knew who would be coming to watch this film. We're definitely not just your normal range of audience members and demographic, but the geek demographic would be here. And what does he do right when the movie starts? Pretty much we're seeing Anna Paquin and Kristen Bell. I mean, any movie that has Snooki and Veronica Mars sitting side by side, well, that's a pretty cool movie, especially with what happens to the two. And it definitely made me laugh my ass off watching it, and it was a good way to start what was going to turn into a somewhat serious film. But then at the end, of course, that would, I'd say, be the only misstep of the film, is that you try to make, Sydney's, cousin or niece or whatever she was, the killer. It felt like a huge reach. And I think also, too, that it would have been great if they could have did something else with the genre. Like, I'm surprised that Kevin Williamson never actually decided for this film to make it be somebody nobody knew. To complete the idea of randomization and just doing it to do it, that the first movie so famously celebrated as the motive being no motive. How scary would that be, that it was absolutely nobody they knew? I mean, I could almost see the characters at the end shaking their heads thinking, wait a minute, shouldn't it be one of us? But I guess it's that kind of self-awareness in this film that, and going over the new horror rules and such of horror movies these days, that the movie made me smile. It was definitely not something I feel was a waste of time. Will I go see it again? Will I consider it a quintessential horror film? No. The first one, yes. The first one did something that the 90s horror genre desperately needed going into the 2000 era. But this movie is going to be one of those films that I think will largely be forgotten in the 2000 era as not a standout horror movie, because so many horror movies in the 2000 era have been done that will never be forgotten. I can think of a great movie, The Descent, as being one of them that when you watch it will never leave you. But and of course, geez, just pick any Japanese horror film in the past 8 years. But with this film, what was nice was it made me go back to when I saw Scream when I was younger, and of course I've seen all of them since. And I think that, having a cast of geeked out characters, I mean, even having Hayden Panettiere, who was on Heroes and stuff, Roy Culkin. I mean, you kind of play to your audience. I give Williamson credit for that. I will also say, and the casting people, I give them credit. But I will also say that, the Scream franchise should probably end with this one. I think we've seen enough, or at the very least, kill off Neve Campbell. I mean, geez, how many second and third chances does this woman get? I think that movie, if Scream 4 would have went that direction, would have off their major characters, it would have been even cooler. We could have seen something truly horrific, and you still could have kept the funny dialogue and the self-awareness and the irony of it all. But they didn't. They chose to keep the popular characters. I can still respect that. I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad point, but, the new rules of horror are such that, anything does have to go, and that's what the first one did. Killed off Drew Barrymore in the first, few minutes of the film. I mean, she was by far the biggest name attached to that, with the exception of the Fonz. But in this movie, you didn't go that route. You didn't try to kill off a major character like that and show us, hey, we'll do anything now. So in that sense, it sort of contradicted itself. But other than that, it's a great movie. Go check it out if you haven't already. It's definitely a fun, movie to rent at night, if you ain't got nothing to do with some of your friends. And definitely a worthy sequel to the Scream franchise. If they do another one, this one will be the one that started. I can't really see where they would go with it necessarily, but at the same time, it was fun. It was a nice throwback. And considering all the other throwbacks to all the other movies in the 90s and 80s, it's definitely at the top. I'd say it's probably the best one I've seen in terms of, digging into the old, chest of all the great movies that have come out that movie companies desperately feel they need to make remakes and sequels of in order to up their salaries. I don't know. But this one didn't feel like that. It felt like a good standalone and at the same time a good sequel. So go check it out. This has been a review for HorrorNerds.com. Check out all the great and wonderful reviews here at HorrorNerds.com, and we'll be talking to you. Thanks.